what's up, fam? I'm Rivo, the Tsonga Gent, and welcome to the best fitness podcast in Africa.
That's true. We here.
Gifted. We're going to be here speaking about all things fitness, debunking all the myths. But in this episode and in this season, we're going to be sitting with professionals, right? But just before we get to that, do us all a favor. Subscribe, comment, and like. And please do tell a friend that the fam is online. And just before that, ladies and gents, just to send a special shout out to our sponsors for this season, which is Move Motion Fitness, Sunny Hill, where we're shooting at right now. We've got Baylor Beauty and Lifestyle, a Restrict Fitness brand, Soul Studio, Shutter Kid, Copper Sight, Dr. T. Maloko, Sguru Hub, and Mabunda Media Group. As you guys can see, teamwork makes the dream work. So let me just introduce the team and then we can get this party started. To the left, I've got Respect Fitness brand. On the other side, big guy on that side, that's Mbali Tshabalala, and our honored guest is Mbali Tshabalala, the Wellness Counsellor. There are some shadies under our feet.
Aw, thanks.
Was that loud enough?
So on today's episode, we're going to be discussing toxic masculinity. Two very small words that carry heavy weight. So as Mbali, as a professional within the psychology era, she's going to be here to obviously guide us on what exactly it means and how she can obviously help myself, the rest of the team, and the listeners and the people watching on what exactly it is and how we can obviously, deal with it as a society. So I guess the first question at hand, ladies and gents, is what is toxic masculinity?
That's a very good question.
Who's on?
Bali,
Is it me?
take it away. Take it away.
Fine, for your average layperson. I think toxic masculinity, for the most part, has to do with the expectations and pressures that are placed on men by society as a whole, by themselves, by the people around them, to behave in ways that are considered to be manly, right? But specifically those ways that cause harm. I think that when you're talking like from a psychological, sociological standpoint, it's usually about, I think we've sort of agreed that there's like three core things that have to do with it. It's toughness, hear me out, anti-femininity,
Yay.
and power, right?
Okay.
If I was to break those down, toughness would have to do with the idea that men have to always be tough, right?
We're talking six-pack, yeah.
All of them. We're talking physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and otherwise tough. The point
You
is,
can't cry, ne? Men, you can cry.
yeah, basically.
But anyway.
Basically.
We can just cry and drive it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically. But there's nothing wrong with being tough, right? In and of itself. And toxic masculinity isn't masculinity as a whole. It's not saying masculinity as a whole is toxic. It's the idea that men have to be, with toughness, the idea that men have to be tough all the time, which is a tough ask for any human being. Like, that's not a thing. It's just hard to do that all the time. And then anti-femininity is not about being anti-women. It sometimes manifests as anti-women, but it's about rejecting the notion of femininity as a whole. Rejecting anything that has to do with femininity, rejecting crying, rejecting asking for help, rejecting vulnerability, rejecting those notions in yourself and in other people, which then obviously sometimes would be anti-women if you're not about femininity, but not always. And then power would have to do with the fact that men are expected to aspire to power and status in order to gain respect, right? That's always supposed to be your aspiration, financially, economically, socially, in your relationships, total power, status, and dominance. And when we look at these three pillars, that's usually what we're talking about the unfair expectations and the pressures that are put on men that make them act in certain ways and those ways that they act are harmful to themselves and to people around them. Long definition, but that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing.
That was beautiful.
All right, so just to sum it up, well, not sum it up per se, but like if we take toxic masculinity and we bring it towards health and fitness, like in a gym setting, right? How do you identify it? And in most cases, like, how does it impact like individuals, like in the gym setting, males or female? Like, can you elaborate a bit more on that?
Okay, so I think
Talk about strength, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Like, just to give you an example, live example, right? So, I myself, I love training with like lightweight, right? I use like your 5 kilos, etc., right? So, I don't know, does that make me a weaker man because I'm training with lightweight?
Yes.
So I like the other. Saying that
Sorry, I just had
strong enough. because
That's
I'm
very
training
toxic
with
right there.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry.
These norms, like, how does that impact me mentally as an individual?
It's exhausting, no? Isn't that the impact? I feel like it's tiring. If you're talking gym, I think that, and yeah, gym and fitness, I think that would fall into the fact that toxic masculinity tends to perpetuate or glorify very unhealthy habits, and risk-taking behavior. I know it's a thing that men tend to push themselves to the limit in all aspects, including in the gym. Once you've pushed yourself to the limit, you also can't look for help. So you're injured. Now you can't go to the doctor, right? You always have to be fighting this invisible thing and constantly pushing yourself, which is it's not a good thing. It's not particularly good for your physical health. It's not good for your mental. If you're sitting in the gym and comparing yourself to other men, I mean, people are built different, right? Before you're a gender, you're a human being. People are built different physically. People are built different mentally. People are capable of pushing themselves to different limits. It doesn't make you lesser than. It is true that it's an expectation that I think I want to say men put on themselves, but then I don't know how men see it. I don't know if they feel like we put that on them as well, which I wouldn't be opposed to. It's true. Everybody holds it up, right? The idea of toxic masculinity. But in the gym, I honestly feel like, yeah, it is problematic. And I think that if you're trying to get fit, obviously, gym has to do with working not just your physical, but your mental. If you're going to the gym, the point is for you to feel better and to feel healthier. You're going there for the endorphins. You're going there to look good. You're going there to feel good. If you're going there and feeling bad and feeling small, you're less likely to want to go, number one. And when you're there, you're more likely to do things for show rather than what it is you're supposed to be doing for your own health. If you're not supposed to be lifting those weights and you're supposed to be lifting those ones, doing 2 of those instead of 30 of those, it's like, why? Because it's supposed to look a certain way. I feel like I'm rambling.
I'll have
You'll go first, or must I go first?
No, I'm as Mbali is speaking, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, there's times where, like, I'm training, right?
Yes.
There's a guy let's say they're on a bench press machine, and I want to use a bench press, and if they taking too long, my then idea is to try and alternate with them. So I'll be like, while you're taking a break, let me jump in, and I'll make sure that they are starting or their current weight. I'll add a few more kilos, then I'll just pump and just make it look so simple, and then put it back and then stare him down and be like,
Unique.
let's work, let's go. And then he'll be like, nah, it's cool, I'm done. I'm like, sweet. And then I carry on with my own session. Now, with the definition, is that a bad thing? Is that a good thing? What's the story?
I mean, you're cutting people's sessions short.
Nah, but I mean, in the gym, you must train, Moose. You can't be on your phone. You know what they do. You know, like, how many more sets you got? And like, no, I got 4 more sets. Like, but you're on your phone.
Yeah.
You want to work. So
So
am I being wrong? Or
I mean, obviously, it's. I feel like it depends on the situation. It's situational. If someone is on their phone and you want to use a machine, then you're like, dude, you're on your phone. There's nothing wrong with that. There's also nothing wrong with competition, but there is healthy competition and unhealthy competition.
what's considered healthy and what's considered unhealthy?
I think the moment it starts to be counterproductive is when we can consider it unhealthy. If you and a mate or a fellow gym bro, I don't know what we call each other, a fellow brethren of exercise.
I like that one.
Wow.
I like it.
If you're obviously pushing each other because you're doing 10 and then they also want to do another 10, I think keeping it positive is a thing. And then at the end of it, It's not like anyone feels small, not trying to make the other person feel small because they did less or more than you. Just kind of like hey, you know what, we pushed, tomorrow you'll do a bit more. Today was my day. Let's keep it moving. One of those things. I think it can be pretty toxic if you're sitting there, you're like, you see, you're a bit, I can't swear here.
Oh,
Say it like it is.
Yeah.
Say it as it is.
You're
Go stop now.
bitch.
In your face.
Yeah, I feel like, look at you, you weak as whatever, that's a problem because now you're tearing a person down. I think it's just about being cognizant of competition for pushing and competition for breaking is not the same thing.
All right. So in the same breath, how does toxic masculinity harm society, right? Like, let's look at it maybe a little bit outside of gym, like just men in general or women in general. Because, I mean, I'd like to believe it applies to pretty much both genders.
It does.
From a society standpoint, how, like, is it harming us or, like, basically the nation or globally?
The nation and globally is actually not the same thing because South Africa is such a special country. If you're looking at it from a sociological standpoint, it's usually our statistics don't look like everyone else's. But
Sure.
you
Sorry.
so.
Sorry.
In terms of women, obviously, if we're talking about anti-femininity, right? And you're talking about how sometimes it obviously will manifest if the idea is that things that are feminine are lesser than, things that are feminine are inferior, things that are feminine are just worthy of ridicule and not all that much worthy of respect. If I am feminine, I don't deserve respect. If another man is feminine, they don't deserve the same respect. I have to be more masculine. That's toxic masculinity, right? So if you are in and of itself looking at femininity as beneath you, you see how this can sometimes translate into looking at women as beneath you or lesser than. Because if a woman embodies all that is feminine and you are seeing these things that are stereotypically feminine as an issue or as lesser than or smaller, not worthy of respect, sometimes that translates into men treating women a certain way. I think that men themselves, because of the fact that they don't have spaces where they can be open, tend to hold a lot of things in. That often results in anger because anger is a secondary emotion. It can be a blanket emotion for like 100 things. You can just be angry, but you're feeling sad and frustrated and lonely and whatever, but you just look angry, you're angry. That's an issue. Aggression and anger.
The reason I'm getting excited is with my clients, some of my female clients at gym, you'll see a guy who's just overly angry. And not even. Maybe the pre-workout didn't kick in time.
We all think that.
But like when you see this person's demeanor, they just angry. A lot angrier than what I am in the gym. Because some people call me angry all the time. But anyway, that's a story for another day. All right. But I've always said that with those men in particular, I'm like, I'll jokingly say, this one is getting a hiding at home. My wife is probably, he's made to be to feel inferior. And you just said now that some, to a certain extent, it's what's happening in their lives and that they're trying to probably overcompensate. So now they're going on to a gym where there's a lot of guys, a lot of big guys. Now he's like, even me, I want to be a part of this crew.
Yeah,
but me at home, when it's ban.
Yeah, you're talking about... It's about fragile masculinity. That's beautiful because that's fragile.
Is it?
Yeah, it's fragile. It's the same. Well, I want to the same thing, but they kind of work together. Obviously,
just pose a question for respect. As a personal trainer, right? You've got male and female clients, right? How do you prepare for them? Like, do you say, okay, I'm preparing a workout because I'm training ladies today, or I'm preparing an overall workout? Or do you prepare something because you know there's a guy coming in, you're going to make him squat heavier? Like, how do you work it out, making it toxic masculinity? Go lighter because it's women, go heavier because it's guys.
I mean, every client comes in with their own fitness level. So for me, I don't care if you're male or female. I don't want to assume that you are weaker physically just because you're a male or a female. I have strong, really strong female clients compared to some of my male clients. But how I program it then is I know where you are physically. My goal as a trainer is to progressively push you, not break you, because I still want you to come back. I still want you to see the building phase of the fitness aspect. So whether you're a male or a female, it doesn't matter to me. I have like male clients, I'm like, but I mean, I don't mean to judge. Yeah, come on. But then deep down, I'm like, you know what? We all have to start somewhere. I shouldn't make somebody feel like their effort that they're putting forward is not enough. That's why you have the progressive overload aspect of training. And I think that's the healthy way to build, right? So the goal is always to build somebody until they get to that point where they can lift heavy and do all these amazing things. But there's like the foundation that you have to build out.
So back to our Dorothel, aka wellness coach. Have you defined or have you seen ways on how like people can obviously promote like healthier lifestyles based on toxic masculinity? Like how can we get it right? How can we teach the viewer, the listener on, I don't know, basically taking it away from their mind and accepting it as, like you were saying earlier on, for instance, it's okay to cry as a man. It's okay to express yourself as a man. You know, like what are ways that you've seen within, you know, like your industry, which you could obviously use to advise myself, Sihle, Respect, and the rest of the viewers and listeners?
There's a lot of different perspectives on what actually works, because different things work for different people and different people like to use different approaches. For me, when I have a client who's struggling with that, I like to deconstruct, because the whole thing is about definition and expectation. And we can't deconstruct society. We're working on it. It takes a long time for everything. So it has to be in and of yourself. I need you to deconstruct how you define what it means to be masculine and what it means to be a man. Instead of, the issue with it is that it's got this tiny definition. There are all these specific things that you need to be in order to fit into this very rigid definition of what it is to be a man. If we're talking about the toxic element of it, you have to be strong all the time and you have to be this and you have to, and some men are just not that. Some men are not naturally aggressive. Some men don't make ridiculous amounts of money. Some men are not sexually promiscuous. That's a thing as well. Some men don't drink a lot. And in order to fit into this, you have to force yourself. So I feel like instead of deciding that that's the definition of what it is for you to be a man, I need you to reconstruct that around what it is that you actually are. Be a human being first. We're trying to get you to be your best self, your happiest self, your most successful self. That doesn't always fit into that specific definition. So if we can deconstruct that and have you focus on your own strengths and your own weaknesses instead of what it is are supposed to be your strengths and supposed to be your weaknesses, I think that's a pretty good place to start. That's usually
just out of curiosity, I think in my understanding and how I'm talking about now, you find that most things derive from a generational background. Okay. Do you find men cheat because, I don't know, their grandfather had 17 wives or their father has, you know, like 5 wives, whatever the case may be. And you saying, okay, we either did it, like deconstruct it, you basically rebrand it to what it fits in for you. But then now, how do you do that having not known anything else but what you've been taught along the ways?
Look, it's not easy. It's work. And toxic masculinity in and of itself is rooted in religion and tradition. A lot, very much so, that's true. Which makes it difficult to let go of. But I think when you get a person to a point where they can see that something would benefit them more, instead of trying to sell it as like we're fighting and, you know, we're being, I don't know, feminists, or we're doing this whole big thing, you're like, it's not about that. It's not, I'm not even going to talk to you about the fact that it perpetuates rape culture. I'm not going to talk to you about all that. That's not the point. I'm saying you're sitting here with the situation. The situation is making you unhappy. And I simply want you to be your happiest self, as happy as you can possibly be, as healthy as you can possibly be. We acknowledge that all these things have been done. We don't say that there's anything wrong with them, and we don't demonize the past. We don't demonize tradition, right? It's that it was necessary at some point, and now it's causing more harm than good. It was good more than harm, and now it's harm more than good, simply because things change over time. And if you try, it's a very long process. For different people, you use different angles, depending on like what they've said and whatever. But for the most part, it really is just the most efficient way. You just have to get a person, you try not to demonize what they believe. You don't demonize their parents and their grandparents. You don't say that they were wrong or that they're anti-feminine or whatever. You just say, this currently is hurting you. I know this because these are the things, but it requires opening up. I know this because we can look at these specific examples where this is a problem. Let's try and make this not a problem. This is the easiest way to do that. And sometimes it just starts to sink in.
It's a lengthy process.
It's a very lengthy process, man.
I don't know, fam, do you guys have any more questions in relation to, especially not the gym setup? Because, you guys are always there as personal trainers. You see these games quite a lot. I don't know, are there any specific things that you've seen that you maybe want to address or maybe give advice on just before we obviously touch base and ask the final question?
Quickly, I'm a star.
For me, with Mbali's definitions and all of that, it actually has put a lot of things into perspective. Because going back to different incidents that I've had at gym, either with members or with clients, now all makes sense. I'm like, oh, okay. Hopefully I'll go back out into the gym space a better person in terms of handling it better or differently. But it's a beautiful eye opener. Thank you for that.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Why is it not?
I think it's great because it makes you understand, or at least allow you to put yourself in someone's shoes. I'm not saying they're right, but sometimes actually I kind of feel sorry for you because why would you assume just because I'm a woman in the gym, I might be tiny, yes, but you can't measure my strength and my ability and everything else, my expertise based on what you see when you see me for the first time. You be busy minding your business. You set up an 80 kg deadlift and someone is behind you, let me help you. I'm like, but I set it up. I did not ask.
They just want to.
If I had just set it up,
That's gross. Why?
then that's a different story, but I didn't
Exactly
ask.
that.
So I think in a gym setting, assuming that someone is weaker just because they are female or this, even the other side of it aspect is also true. I can't assume that you're a strong guy just because you're a man, you're in the gym. The goal there, for me at least, is I want to be better than I was yesterday. I'm not trying to be better than somebody else who's next to me because I don't know their story. I don't know when they started, how they started, where they are. So I do prefer to I understand it better now, so it makes sense. So instead of judging, I'll understand a little bit more. Yeah.
I think in a nutshell, it's basically saying that it's okay to ask for help, especially with the gents. I'll speak from a very personal standpoint. I used to do quite a lot of ego training, right? With childhood with regards to injuries and whatnot, but ends up gone to your 5 kilos and whatnot. But the moral of the story is that you need to obviously have a goal, stick to that goal, and not worry about what the next big guy is doing next to you.
That's true.
Right? Be able to ask for help, number one. Number two, and just have confidence in what you're doing and not be, confuzzled by what's happening around you.
Yeah.
Right? Cool stuff. So, I just have one more question for our wellness coach. It's call it a special sector of the show. It's called My Untold Gym Story. So is there anything that you've seen, heard, or done in the gym that no one else knows about that you're going to be sharing here for the first time
Oh no.
to the fam? There's no go see whatsoever. It's like limang mang.
Nothing that let you
This is a safe
It's a safe
space.
space.
There's also a camera. You know what I mean?
Not recording anymore.